going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackwitz. This is the Kaged Review, and this is my review for Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, the second in the Fantastic Four series. Directed again by Tim Story, and I made a joke about his surname just not fitting because the story in both of these movies are pretty bad. But let me preface this by saying that usually when people are really hard on a movie, I try to be a little bit more diplomatic about the storytelling, the creation of the movie itself, the effects, and I try to be a little bit more understanding because I don't make movies. I certainly enjoy them, but I have no real reason to be a critic other than I watch them. And so I try to be nice in my approach. So, was this movie really as bad as all the criticism? And the easy answer is yes. This movie, even for a layman like me, who has never had a moment inside a movie studio or a movie set, it just was bad all the way around. So let's start out. You have Ian Gruffudd come back as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm the Thing. Jessica Alba as Sue Storm, Invisible Girl. Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. Julian McMahon comes back as Victor Von Doom, Dr. Doom. And you have Lawrence Fishburne voicing the Silver Surfer, and Doug Jones actually playing the body of the Silver Surfer. And you have Andre Braugher as General Hager. So this is a movie that probably should have never been made, in my opinion. It just failed on everything that it did. Especially kind of destroying some of the characters we know them from the comics, but not just that. The special effects, at this point, you're a couple years later than the first movie. This was made in 2007. And it still looks just as bad as it did in 2005 with some of the effects, especially Mr. Fantastic's stretching ability. The elastic skin thing, it just looks horrible. Looks no better than the first movie at all. They start out this movie with a sequence of the Silver Surfer coming to Earth, and it's kind of like changing the climate in different areas, and weird things are happening, like it's solidifying the water in one area and it's making snow fall near the Sphinx. And a lot of this is done with CGI that I could probably do on my laptop today and make look better than what is in that movie, and that's not an exaggeration. I've actually toyed around with After Effects and some other video programs that really do make things look really good nowadays, and I would have to say better than what they did in this movie. And you start out with this premise of this guy, the Silver Surfer, he's coming to Earth, the climate is changing, all these weird things are happening, and then you find out he's creating these massive holes that are supposed to be like the harbinger of Galactus, who is really one of the main bads in all of Marvel. He's right up there with Thanos, and I would say actually bigger and badder than Thanos by a lot. And so you've got this massive character that you're finally introducing to the Marvel Universe in these movies. And we'll get to that in a second. That was just a huge disappointment all its own. But while all this stuff is going on in the world and all these weird phenomena that are happening all around the world, Reed Richards and Sue Storm are getting married, and that is the focus of everybody in this movie, and that just didn't make any sense. You have these potentially cataclysmic events, and everybody's worried about a marriage between two people. And the government actually comes to Reed Richards, and he says he can't help the government figure out what's causing all this because he's getting married. I mean, we get it. There was a lot of stalls involved, and, you know, him and Sue have had friction before because he wasn't focused enough on their marriage, but this is just ridiculous. So you eventually get to the wedding day. The Silver Surfer shows up at their wedding for some reason, just kind of passes by. Everything kind of goes haywire. There's a helicopter that kind of starts to crash into the crowd, and of course the thing stops it. And so, okay, the wedding is now ruined. Sue Storm is all upset about that, forget everything else that's happening in the world. And then they finally decide to work on figuring this out. They figure out where Silver Surfer is going next. England. There's kind of a cool action sequence there. And at the end of the day, it kind of culminates with Sue Storm talking to the Silver Surfer for the first time, and him kind of revealing that he's not really the one that's going to destroy the Earth. He's only a messenger for someone else who is coming. And by doing this, he is sparing his own wife and his own family and his own world. And so Sue Storm kind of plays to his better nature, the Silver Surfers. They eventually find a way to separate him from his surfboard, which is the source of his power. And of course, Doctor Doom steals the surfboard, tries to take over, and there's really no explanation for what Doctor Doom is doing, what he wants to do, what his goal is in this movie. It's just him doing something bad because he's bad. So he takes the surfboard, he kills a few people, he winds up getting knocked off the surfboard, and it literally went nowhere with Doctor Doom. Nowhere at all. The Silver Surfer eventually decides that he is going to sacrifice himself to take out Galactus so that he can save Earth. Well, he could have done this a long time ago and saved billions and trillions of lives throughout the galaxy instead of feeding Galactus all these worlds. And so none of this really made sense. Like, the plot was weak, a lot of things that happened were weak. You had a couple of cool sequences there, especially one in England, but at the end of the day, the CGI looked bad, the story was not very good, the characters were not fleshed out, character choices just didn't make sense, and I mean, really, what else are you left with? Not much. So it was a pretty bad take on the Fantastic Four, and that was sad for me. But you finally get to the end where Silver Surfer is going to go fetch Galactus and sacrifice himself. You see like a shadow of Galactus's head on Saturn, and then you see a big cloud, and the Silver Surfer light up and explode everything, and that was it. You never saw Galactus at all, which was just a piss poor choice. I mean, you have so much potential there. And like throughout this movie, the theme was, it just felt like they were just doing this to cash grab. Nobody really cared about anything in this movie. Nobody cared about how bad certain things looked in the movie. Nobody cared, like even the opening sequence, they show this world being exploded and there's these couple of incredibly fake looking planets. And then you come from that and you see the Silver Surfer go by the moon, which looked faker than I've ever seen it in just about any movie ever. I mean, it's just like nobody cared. And you could tell. And one other thing I really didn't like about this movie that just did not make sense, and it really didn't even culminate in anything, I don't know that it was ever really resolved, was the fact that Silver Surfer, he's getting chased by Johnny Storm after he ruins the wedding, and so they finally come in contact with each other, and for some reason that contact did something to Johnny Storm to wherever he touched any other one of the Fantastic Four, they would exchange powers. Like he touches the Thing, Johnny Storm then becomes a rock guy, and the Thing becomes the guy who can manipulate fire. And then they touch and the powers revert back. And that happened a lot during this movie, and it really was not explained at all. And like I said, I don't know that there was ever a culmination with that. So, I don't know, man. And so for that reason, I have to give this a 3 out of 10. It was a very, very bad movie. And like I said, I'm not the guy to pick apart stuff, especially special effects. There are a lot of times when people look at special effects and they're like, that looks terrible. And I'm just like, I don't see why. Because I don't really pick things apart like that. And honestly, I guess I just, I'm okay with special effects that aren't necessarily top notch. But in this movie, it goes way beyond not being top notch. So that's just kind of where I'm at with it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz, Kaged Nation, out.